Self-respect doesn't announce itself. It just quietly eliminates what you're not willing to sit with. Being treated like an option. He responds when it's convenient. He's warm when he wants something, and harder to reach when he doesn't. You find yourself rearranging around someone who hasn't made you a priority once. A woman with self-respect notices this early, not because she's suspicious, but because she's paying attention. What she sees is someone keeping her available without keeping her close. She doesn't try to earn a more permanent spot. She just stops being available to someone who was never really available to her. Inconsistent behavior. Warm one day, distant the next, affectionate for a week, then suddenly unavailable without explanation. And when she brings it up, the conversation becomes about her sensitivity rather than his pattern. There's a point where the excuses stop being explanations and start being the pattern itself. Running hot and cold, expecting her to absorb the temperature changes without complaint. A woman with self-respect stops calling that complexity. She calls it unreliable. The good days are supposed to be the baseline, not the reward. Disrespect disguised as humor. A comment about the way she dresses. A joke at her expense in front of others. Something said that gets a laugh and leaves her deciding whether to smile along or seem like she can't take a joke. I was just joking, let someone say something cutting and place the discomfort entirely back on her. If she laughs, it was fine. If she doesn't, she's the problem. A woman with self-respect knows the difference between humor that includes her and humor aimed at her. She stopped being willing to be the punchline, and she stopped pretending not to notice when that's what was happening. Being expected to prove her worth. There are relationships where you spend enormous energy demonstrating that you're worth keeping, where being good enough requires constant performance, where you're always one wrong move away from losing something that never felt fully secured. A woman with self-respect walks away from the audition early. Worth isn't something you argue your way into. The ones who keep moving the line aren't going to be persuaded by a better version of her argument. She's not for everyone. The ones who need to be sold on her are simply not her people. Emotional laziness. She communicates. He goes quiet. She brings things up. He waits for them to pass. She does the repair work after conflict while he assumes everything is fine until it isn't. There's a point where it becomes clear that one person is doing all the noticing, all the initiating, all the heavy lifting, while the other simply exists inside the relationship and expects it to function. A woman with self-respect gets tired of carrying both sides. Effort isn't complicated to give when you actually want to give it. The absence of it is its own kind of answer, being compared to other women. His ex was more easygoing. Other women don't make this a big deal. Why can't she just relax about it? Comparisons like this are designed to make her doubt herself enough to stop asking for what she needs. They reframe her standards as the problem rather than his behavior. A woman with self-respect doesn't take that bait. She doesn't adjust her expectations downward because someone else is willing to accept less. She's not asking for too much. Someone is just hoping she'll believe that she is. Constant confusion. He says he cares. His actions suggest otherwise. He talks about the future in ways that sound real, but nothing moves forward, and somehow a year has passed. A woman with self-respect stops explaining the gap away, Sustained confusion over months about whether someone wants to be with you is information. Uncomfortable, but information. She's not confused about what she wants. She just spent a long time pretending she was confused about what he wanted, because the alternative was admitting she already knew. Being taken for granted. First, the appreciation fades, then the acknowledgement. Then the expectations quietly grow in the space where gratitude used to be. She keeps showing up, and at some point it stops being something he's grateful for and becomes something he simply counts on. A woman with self-respect notices that shift. She stops overgiving to someone who stopped noticing, not out of spite, but because pouring into something that isn't being received is its own kind of self-abandonment. What she offers is a choice she makes, and choices can change. Minimal effort. He responds but never initiates, shows up when it's easy, disappears when it costs anything, does just enough to keep things going without ever doing enough to make them good. And when she brings it up, he points to the minimum as evidence. I'm here, aren't I? A woman with self-respect stops accepting presence as the whole argument. Not leaving isn't the same as actively choosing to stay. She wants someone who shows up on purpose. Minimum effort in a relationship is usually maximum comfort for one person. She's noticed which one. Being told she's too much, too intense, too direct, too certain about what she wants, too unwilling to just go along. Too much almost always means the same thing. She exceeds what someone was hoping to manage. Her presence asks more than they were prepared to give, and rather than rise to it, they hand the problem back to her and call it a flaw. A woman with self-respect stops reshaping herself to make that easier for someone. She's not overwhelming, she's fully present. The right person won't find those things the same. Broken promises. The first time, she forgives it. The second time, she notices. By the third, she starts to understand something she'd rather not. A woman with self-respect pays attention to patterns rather than individual incidents. Not because she's keeping score, but because patterns are what actually tell you who someone is. Anyone can have a bad week. Consistently not following through is a different thing. Words are easy. What they're worth depends entirely on what comes after them. Staying where she feels small. No dramatic moments, no obvious cruelty. Just a slow contraction. She stops bringing up certain things because it's not worth the reaction. She adjusts in small increments until one day she barely recognizes the version of herself that shows up in this relationship. A woman with self-respect eventually notices that contraction. The discomfort of having become smaller than herself gets louder than the comfort of staying. She knows the difference between adapting to someone and erasing yourself for them. She stops staying in rooms that require the second one, fear of leaving. This one underlies all the others. Every entry on this list persists as long as the fear of being alone is louder than everything else. And that fear is real. It's not weakness. Being alone after something ends is genuinely hard. Starting over is genuinely hard. The uncertainty of what comes next sits in your chest, in a way that's difficult to explain to anyone who hasn't felt it. But there's another fear that eventually gets louder, the fear of losing yourself completely while holding on to something that was never really holding you back. The fear of arriving somewhere later and realizing the years went into managing someone else's potential. The fear of staying so long in the wrong place that you forget what the right one felt like. Self-respect isn't the absence of fear. It's the moment when the fear of disappearing finally outweighs the fear of being alone for a while. That shift doesn't happen all at once, but when it does, it changes everything that comes after it. You don't build self-respect by reading about it. It comes from the decisions you make when it's uncomfortable to make them. If this found you at the right moment, you probably already know what to do with it.